Before we begin tonight's story, I'd love to know where in the world are you listening from and what time is it for you right now? Drop your location and the time in the comments. It's always beautiful to see how many of us are sharing this quiet moment together from so many corners of the world. Now, have you ever found yourself lying awake, eyes open to the darkness, wondering quietly, who am I? And where will I go when all of this ends? We live as if life will stretch on forever. Yet in those still hours when the noise of the day has faded, a question sometimes whispers to the heart. If death is the end, why all this struggle, all this love, all this longing? And if death is not the end, what is it that truly continues? Is there an immortal soul that leaves the body drifting into another life? Or is that just a story we tell ourselves born from the fear of endings? Rebirth. It's a word that can feel both comforting and unsettling. Comforting because it carries the hope that this life isn't the last. Unsettling because we can't be sure what is real. Tonight, we'll walk gently into this mystery. Not to convince, not to debate, but to invite you to look deeply into your own mind and feel what is still moving, what longs to continue, and to ask in this very moment, who is it that is listening? You've probably heard the word rebirth before. Maybe it came from a movie, a Sunday sermon, or a quiet, late-night conversation with a friend. For most of us, the moment we hear it, an image rises in our mind almost instantly. We picture a soul, something invisible, yet real, leaving the body like a wisp of smoke floating into another form. Maybe a newborn baby, maybe another body somewhere far away. It's like moving houses. One resident leaves an old home and moves into a new one. The person changes clothes but remains the same underneath. This idea is comforting, isn't it? It whispers, you won't disappear. You'll just move on from this life to another, like a traveler swapping out a worn coat for a fresh one. But that is not what the Buddha actually taught. Buddhism never claimed there is an eternal, unchanging soul packed up neatly and shipped from one life to the next. In fact, the heart of the Buddha's teaching points to something far more subtle and far more liberating. The Buddha spoke of anatta, no fixed self, no permanent I living behind your eyes, no tiny eternal passenger steering the wheel of your life. Instead, he pointed to a stream of mind flowing moment to moment, made up of thoughts, feelings, memories, habits, reactions, desires, and deeper currents we might call karma. This stream is not a thing you can hold in your hand. It has no fixed shape, no place it lives inside your skull. It's a movement constantly arising, changing, fading like waves on the shore. Think of lighting one candle from another. The flame seems to move from one wick to the other, but in truth, no flame travels. What passes is the condition, heat, light, the potential to burn. In the same way, what we call rebirth is not the transfer of a solid self, but the continuation of conditions. Like wind that carries the scent of pine, like a seed that sprouts when the soil is right. Life flows forward without a central me to cling to. For many people, This is where the mind stumbles. We are used to the extremes: either there's a soul that lasts forever, or death is the end. Buddhism stands outside both. It says there's no eternal self, but there is continuation. The question shifts. It's no longer, where will I go when I die? It becomes, what is it that continues when there is no I to begin with? And that feels like a riddle, one you can't solve just by thinking. So tonight, I won't ask you to believe in rebirth. I won't try to convince you of a doctrine. Instead, I'll invite you to sit beside this question like you'd sit by a campfire in the woods at night, watching the flames dance, feeling their warmth without needing to own them or to carry them away. And yet, if there's no fixed self, no unchanging soul, what exactly is flowing in that stream? What is it that keeps moving from one moment to the next? Let's take a quiet step deeper and look at the nature of the mind itself. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine you're standing by a river. The surface glimmers in the moonlight. It looks still, but if you watch closely, you see it's always moving. Never the same water twice. Our mind is like that river. We think of ourselves as one solid thing, a fixed identity, a single me that wakes up each morning unchanged. But if you pause long enough, you might notice something different. Yesterday's you is not the same as today's you. Yesterday's worries, yesterday's laughter, yesterday's small aches in your body, they've already flowed downstream. In their place, new thoughts arise, new sensations, a fresh current. But because this change happens so quickly, we don't see the breaks between the drops. We mistake the moving water for something permanent. The Buddha compared it to a flame, not a solid object, but a process, a constant burning fed by fuel. And what is the fuel for the mind's flame? Desire, aversion, clinging to the things we like, pushing away the things we fear. Every time you crave something, you feed the flame. Every time you get caught in anger, you feed it again. Every time you replay a memory or rehearse an argument in your head, you add one more twig to the fire. It's not that a soul jumps from body to body. It's that the pattern, the conditioning keeps going, just like the river keeps flowing, just like the wind keeps moving over the grass. You can't point to the wind and say, there, that's the same wind as yesterday. But you can feel its movement. You can watch it carry seeds changing the shape of the land. Our thoughts and habits are those seeds. They fall into the soil of the next moment. And when the right conditions arrive, they sprout. You wake up one morning and think, why do I feel this way? But the seed was planted long before, by 1,000 small choices, 1,000 unnoticed thoughts. In this way, rebirth is happening. Not just once, but over and over, in a single day, in a single hour. You are reborn in every thought, every surge of emotion, every shift of mind. If something in these words touches you, a sentence, an image, a question, take a moment to write it down in the comments. Share the thought that lingers with you. You never know. Your reflection might be exactly what someone else needs to hear tonight. And yet, if the mind is a stream and each moment is a new ripple, what keeps that water moving in the first place? Where does the current get its force? What is it that propels one moment into the next, that turns thoughts into patterns and patterns into entire lives? To find out, we'll need to talk about something often misunderstood, something that sounds heavy but is actually the quiet engine of every rebirth karma. You've seen it before. A wheel slowly turning round and round, not because it wants to, but because something keeps pushing it. In the old villages, that something was water. The stream would flow, push the paddles, and the wheel could do nothing but turn. In our lives, that water is karma, but karma is not a cosmic judge keeping score. It's not a divine book of punishments and rewards. In the Buddha's teaching, karma simply means action. What you do, what you say, what you think, especially the intentions behind them. Every action plants a seed. Some are seeds of kindness, patience, understanding. Others are seeds of anger, fear, and craving. And like all seeds, they wait, not in some secret vault, but right here in the soft soil of your mind. When the right conditions meet the right seed, it sprouts. It shapes the way you see, the way you react, the way you step into the next moment. Think of learning to drive. At first, you had to think of every step: seatbelt, mirrors, turn, signal, brake, gas. Your mind was alert, maybe even tense. But after months, you no longer think about it. Your hands just turn. Your foot just presses. It's a reflex. That's what karma is like. A thought repeated enough times becomes a habit. A habit repeated enough times becomes a pattern. A pattern followed long enough feels like who you are. We carry these patterns forward, not because anyone tells us to not, because an unseen force drags us, but because the wheel is still turning. The stream is still flowing. The seeds are still sprouting. When the body falls away, if the stream still carries the same currents, if the wheel is still pulled by the same water, those patterns seek new ground. They look for a place to take root again. That's all rebirth is. Not a person leaping from life to life, but the momentum of conditions unfolding. A quiet chain reaction. Like the echo in a canyon, no one is speaking anymore. And yet, the sound keeps bouncing from cliff to cliff. And here's the truth. This isn't just about the far-off moment of death. It's happening now. Every time you lose yourself in anger, you are reborn in anger. Every time you get lost in longing, you are reborn in longing. Every time you resist what is, you are reborn in resistance. This is the wheel turning in plain sight. As you listen, notice what patterns keep showing up in your own days. If you'd like, share one in the comments. Not to judge yourself, but to witness together the small ways our own wheels keep spinning. And yet, if karma is the engine, what does it mean for the wheel to stop? Can a stream simply rest? can a flame burn out, not in despair but in peace? In the next part, we'll look at how modern science, from brain research to quantum physics, has stumbled onto ideas that sound surprisingly close to what the Buddha saw under the Bodhi tree. Some people hear the Buddha speak of rebirth, and they think that's religion, that's faith, that's not science. And yet, in quiet laboratories, under the cold glow of machines, scientists have been chasing the same mystery. What is consciousness? Where does the I begin and where does it go when the body stops? Neuroscientists have traced electrical pulses through the maze of the brain. They've mapped billions of neurons, tiny stars firing in the dark. They've looked for the command center, the captain's chair, the place where the self sits. And what they keep finding is nothing. No single spot where you live. No solid pearl of identity hidden behind your thoughts. Only a shimmering web of connections flashing on and off, shaping and reshaping every second. It's strangely familiar, isn't it? Like hearing a scientist describe what the Buddha whispered 200 to 500 years ago, that the mind is not a thing, but a process. That it arises from conditions just as a flame arises when spark meets fuel. Physicists have wandered down their own winding path. In the realm of quantum mechanics, a particle can be in two places at once. Time is not as solid as we think. Space itself bends and weaves as if reality were a vast fabric, folding and unfolding on itself. And in that shifting fabric, nothing exists alone. Every event is tied to countless other events. Every cause is also an effect. Every effect becomes a cause. This is what Buddhism calls dependent origination. Everything depends on everything else. Nothing stands apart, not even the thing you call me. Then there are the stories, told quietly in hospital corridors. A woman's heart stops for 3 minutes. Later, she describes the doctor's hands, the color of the nurse's shoes, the pattern on the ceiling. Things she couldn't possibly have seen, unless she was looking from somewhere above her body. Some say that's proof. The soul is real. But the Buddha would smile gently, not to dismiss, but to remind us we don't need a permanent soul to explain the mind's journey. Just as a radio signal can travel without the old radio, the stream of consciousness can move if the conditions are there. No one has to carry it. It just flows like music, searching for another speaker. If this part stirs something in you, maybe a memory or a moment you can't explain, share it in the comments. Your story might be the echo someone else has been waiting to hear. Science and spirituality, two rivers flowing from different mountains, sometimes meeting in the same ocean. But if they are both pointing to the same truth, that nothing is fixed, that all things arise and pass from conditions, then maybe the next question isn't what continues, but how to meet it. Because if the mind is always moving, is it possible to meet it so fully, so clearly, that it no longer pulls us along? In the next section, we'll sit with the heart of the matter. What does it mean to stop chasing the next moment and rest right here? You've been walking along the river for a while now, watching the current, hearing the water wheel turn, feeling the wind carry the seeds of old habits downstream. And maybe a quiet question is forming in you. If the stream never stops, can it ever rest? The Buddha's answer was not about running away, not about escaping life by force, and not about punishing the body. It was about turning toward the very thing we've been avoiding, the restless movement of the mind itself. Imagine you're standing in front of a spinning carousel. The colors blur, the music loops, the horses rise and fall. It's easy to get dizzy just watching. Most of us, instead of stepping off, jump from one horse to another, from joy to anger, from fear to hope, from longing to regret. We think we're moving forward, but really, we're just circling. Awakening is not about finding a better horse. It's about stepping off the ride. The Buddha never said, "You must believe in rebirth." He said, "See the mind. See how it moves, see how it clings, and see what happens when it stops." When you truly look, you may notice the self you've been guarding. The me you've been defending is made of moments, memories, like old photographs fading at the edges, feelings, like clouds changing shape before you can name them, thoughts, like birds landing for a breath, then taking flight. You've been holding them all together, calling the bundle me. But what happens if you let them drift? You might find that nothing solid falls apart because nothing solid was there. You might see that when there's no one to cling, the clinging itself dissolves. The wheel slows. The stream rests. The flame flickers and goes out not in darkness, but in a quiet, clear light. This is not death. It's release. It's the mind free from the push and pull of desire and fear. But as you listen, maybe there's a moment in your life when you felt a sudden stillness, a pause, where everything was clear, even if just for a breath. If you'd like, share that memory in the comments. Your story might be the lantern someone else needs tonight. Awakening, the Buddha taught, isn't somewhere far away. It isn't waiting in a heaven above or in a future life you have to earn. It's here, in this breath, in the space between thoughts. When the mind is quiet, rebirth stops. And when rebirth stops, there is nothing to fear. But how do we bring this into our everyday life? How do we carry this stillness into our mornings, our conversations, our moments of anger or joy? In the final part of tonight's story, we'll bring it all together so you can see not only what rebirth means, but how to live so that every moment is a gentle return home. You've been here with me, walking by the river, listening to the water wheel turn, watching the current flow under moonlight. You've seen how most people imagine rebirth as a soul traveling from one body to another. You've seen the Buddha's different vision, a stream of mind made of moments always changing, never fixed. You've seen how karma, our actions, words, and thoughts are the quiet seeds that keep the current moving. Not punishment, not reward. Just cause and effect unfolding again and again. You've even heard how modern science, with all its machines and measurements, is finding no solid self to hold on to, only patterns, only processes, only movement. And now we arrive here, in this breath, in this moment. Rebirth isn't only about what happens after your last heartbeat. It's about what happens between this thought and the next one. When you feel joy, that is a birth. When you sink into sadness, that is another birth. When you lose yourself in a memory or in a worry, you've stepped into a new role, another life, within this very life. And yet, you don't have to keep stepping onto the carousel. Imagine you're standing in a quiet field at dawn. The fog is lifting. A single bird calls from a faraway tree. You take a breath, and for a moment, there is nothing to reach for, nothing to push away, nothing to protect. Just the cool air. Just the beating of your own heart. Just the stillness, holding everything. This is the pause that ends the wheel. This is where the stream rests. This is what the Buddha pointed to. You don't need to believe in rebirth to touch this. You don't need to reject it either. The truth is not asking for your belief, only for your attention. So maybe tonight, instead of trying to answer the question, will I be reborn? You can try asking, what am I feeding right now? What am I stepping into in this moment? Because when you see clearly, you may notice the wheel slow, the current ease, the flame soften. And in that gentle light, you may find that you've already come home. If this story brought you a little peace tonight, or opened a new way of seeing, I'd be so happy if you'd subscribe to Stories for Sleep and tap the little bell so you can join me here each night for another quiet journey. And if you haven't already, tell me in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. Somehow, knowing we're here together under the same sky makes the night feel a little less lonely.